2016 heralds the next inevitable stage of comic book media's growing takeover of, well, everything. And even more so than that, DC in particular pulling out all the stops to catch up with Marvel. The latest result of which is Legends of Tomorrow, a spin-off shared by both The Flash and Arrow of CW. My interest in the show has admittedly been a slow rise since its announcement, and my first impression of things is that we're off to a semi-decent start? Yeah, fun fact, I planned on being far more positive with this premiere, but unfortunately the first thing to note about it is that it doesn't really hold up all that well once you turn on your brain. In the far future, an immortal despot by the name of Vandal Savage has taken over the whole planet with an iron fist. Time traveler Rip Hunter elects to gather a whole bunch of superheroes, and one or two supervillains from 2016 to aid in his time-hopping quest to stop Savage. Okay, the real first thing to note about this show is that you shouldn't even try watching it if you haven't been keeping up with recent episodes of Flash or Arrow. Preferably both, but at least one. To be fair, once Hunter assembles his 8 chosen legends, there's a long sequence where each of the team members chooses whether or not to accept the proposal. That does a decent job of setting up their individual traits and character motivations. Though now that I think about it, do you guys not want to fight outside the fairly expensive-looking apartment? I'm just saying. This show sinks or swims on the dynamic of the 9 main characters, and in a group of people this disparate, it was important that all of them have a motivation for joining the mission that seems natural. Hawkman and Hawkgirl have a natural investment in taking down Vandal Savage, but the others also have good reasons to tag along that fit with who they are as people. I particularly sympathize with Martin Stein, who's painfully aware of his own mortality and, in his own words, isn't sure how many adventures he has left. Though I'm not really sure if that justifies roofing his partner Jax.
I did not roofie him.
Yeah, Martin, you did. This is where the problems start to set in. There's also Ray Palmer, who essentially just wants to prove that his life means anything to the world. And I think this marks the first time I've ever found Ray Palmer interesting in anything, so good on you, show. However, the real MVP comedy-wise has gotta be Heatwave.
I like killing people.
Once the whole crew is together, the episode centers around finding Professor Boardman, played by Peter Francis James, who has relevant information on Savage. I bring up the actor by name because he really does a good job for such a truncated one-time part. There's a sense of emotion in his voice throughout his whole sequence that just gets to me. Unfortunately, his role in the episode feels incredibly rushed, and for the character he is, he really needed more than 2 or 3 scenes of focus to have the impact he was supposed to. I understand that us getting to spend so little time with him adds to the sense of tragedy surrounding him, but as an audience member, I could have stood to see this interesting character concept explored more. Speaking of performances, I would obviously be bringing some Doctor Who bias into this show, but I doubt even people who don't watch that show would disagree with me that Arthur Darvill gives easily the best performance of the episode. Not that the others are necessarily slouching acting-wise. The group of nobodies angle that arises when Hunter reveals he chose these 8 because time essentially sees them as expendable makes for some good meta-commentary regarding how little investment the larger audience is likely to have in these characters. And I'm personally looking forward to seeing how this show can make these guys as collectively interesting to me as the likes of Flash or Batman or Superman. Getting back to the negatives, the one big and apparent downside with this thing is how it really could have used a 2-hour premiere much like Marvel did with Agent Carter. I may change my mind when the next episode does roll around, but this is titled Pilot Part 1, so I doubt it. I like individual episodes of shows to feel like complete stories for the most part. I don't want things wrapped up in episode 1, of course, that'd be stupid, but I'd have liked to begin this series with the feeling that I just watched something with a beginning, middle, and end, and this premiere definitely ends in the middle. I'm sure there's some behind-the-scenes reason for why it can't be helped. Heck, the fact that this show is allegedly so expensive it may not get a second season probably dictates airing as many weeks as possible to gain ratings. But I just don't see the point in splitting the story up into 2 pieces a week apart from each other, but still acknowledging those parts as technically one episode. As it stands, the final scenes feel rather like we're forcing ourselves into a place where we can end in a vaguely comfortable place to end. Particularly with Jax, who starts the story as the most reluctant to go on the trip, but his transition to a more accepting team member is really the type of thing that should have taken multiple episodes. This problem also extends to the dialogue. The comedic writing is really fun through the whole episode, but outside of that there's a lot of dialogue that seems to come out of nowhere just so we can get someplace we haven't earned yet. Because it's an incomplete story, it's not something I feel comfortable giving a number grade to, but from this episode alone, the series is setting up to be an off-the-wall ride of pure entertainment, so it's already in my good graces. That said, it's definitely dumb fun, and the more you think about it, the more problems you'll find.